All right, peeps, on today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, I will be talking to the Bruce Lee YouTuber, Stripey Rambles. Lots of gems, lots of Bruce Lee documentaries, lots of, well, you'll see in a moment. Let's get to it.
And every day, I practice martial arts. Watch out!
Stripey Rambles, welcome to the Kung Fu Genius podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes.
You've broken my cherry. This is my kind of first interview.
Yes. To explain that, we actually recorded an interview with you a few months ago. Was it almost 4 months ago now? I think it was. And we had some technical issues and the interview didn't come out. So we had to do it again. So we're doing it again for the first time. So it's still your first interview, right?
It is. It totally is.
Awesome. I'm surprised the other kind of Bruce Lee and movie geeks haven't caught on to getting you on, because from the first interview we did, you're a fantastic guest. You have so much to talk about. I think more people should have you on. So yeah, so let's get started. So I don't want to ask the same questions I asked you last time. Not that it matters for the audience. They haven't seen it anyway, but we will cover a lot of the same stuff. But I watched a few of your recent videos, so I want to talk about some of the stuff you've done recently. Now, I've talked about this. The Bruce Lee Nunchaku Ping Pong Nokia commercial that for whatever reason, a large majority of people think is real. You did a video debunking it. Is this something that you get common in like your comments, that, or was it just because of the one Who Shall Remain Nameless? What gave you the idea to do that video?
For some weird reason, it came up on my feed. And I thought, what is this? You know, I could see what he was doing, and I couldn't help myself, and I clicked on it. Now, in all fairness, he's not getting the views that he used to get, and he is now getting called out in the comments.
Yes.
I think he's going into damage control. But I looked on Bruce Lee Ping Pong, and there's the reaction YouTube channels that are out there. They're all buying into it. A lot of them are buying into it, thinking it's legitimate stuff. Now, people that know Bruce Lee, and like yourself, like myself, and a lot of the people that watch our stuff, they know it's crap. But there are new people that are getting into it, that buy into that nonsense, So it's the only reason every now and again I'll go back and I'll make a video that covers the basics that we all know, but it's on my channel. So if anyone just subscribes to my channel or whatever, because I know you've discussed it before, fair few times, but people buy into it. And that's the only reason why I've done it, just to call out the nonsense. But like I said, he's got a huge channel, as we know, but he's not getting the views that he once did. I think people are starting to wake up to it, really.
Yeah, that's interesting because, he had Who Shall Remain Nameless with the biggest, in terms of subscribers, I think he's got the biggest of all the Bruce Lee topic channels. But he used to have crazy views. He used to have videos with the 1 million+ views. And recently, I took a look at his channel, and he gets fewer views than the Kung Fu Genius these days. And yeah, it's strange because I also we did a Beerdy video a few months ago where we watched some of his more recent stuff, and it's very different in format from his older stuff that got him lots of views, where he would basically just make up stuff about Bruce Lee for 20 minutes. Now he's showing like footage and going kind of nowhere, and which is weird to say he's going nowhere when he never actually went anywhere. But even for his standards, he seems to be all over the place. Do you think that pressure from channels like yours, or maybe Golden Bell, or maybe to a smaller degree mine, are now kind of putting that focus where people are starting to go, wait a minute, this guy's full of shit?
Possibly. I mean, you can only rehash the same thing over and over and over. He does very clickbaity titles, but there are other channels. It's not just the one that remains nameless, but there are other channels that do it. Bruce Lee was not, with pictures that is clearly not Bolo. It's an old man that looks similar to Bolo.
Right.
They're getting huge numbers as well. They're sort of taking the baton from Beerdy and running. I think he's in damage control, because when I looked at the ping pong video, it put out like 4 videos in the last day, which you know yourself, it's real hard work to do. I couldn't do that.
Right.
I wouldn't have
Right.
the time to do it, and I wouldn't be able to do it. It takes me ages to edit one video, you know.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with him. You know, he's got a huge channel. He's obviously made a few quid over the years, but he's also led people down a garden path, and it's full of lies. And that's what bugs me. I think Bruce Lee's life is interesting enough.
Yeah.
His legacy is incredible. Make up stuff. That's not Bruce Lee doing nunchucks, ping pong. It's ridiculous. I mean, it was a great advert, don't get me wrong, for what it was. You know, I weren't too fan of the Johnny Walker advert that I know Shannon signed off on, you know, but there has been some great Bruce Lee, and it's great. Anything to sort of keep him in the memory of everyone is wonderful, but it isn't him.
Yeah.
It isn't him. And that sort of thing rubs my rhubarb. It does. It does.
I think that should be on a shirt. But Mikey, by the way, is like he's holding himself over from laughing right now. Rubs my that would be a great shirt. We should make that with Stripey Rambles' head on the back.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. You said that he's also who shall remain nameless is also getting some heat in the comments because he notoriously just deleted any comment when he had his famous video saying that some guy named Grandmaster Baxter, who was really Dan Inosanto, and people would say that, and he would just famously kind of delete all of those comments. But it seems like even he's not able to keep up with all the haterade, and maybe he just doesn't care anymore.
You reap what you sow, mate. You reap what you sow.
Absolutely.
You know, he's had his day. I know he's been on YouTube for a long time. When I first looked at YouTube, he was one of the first that I found. But I quickly learned that it was rubbish, really.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
So I'm surprised YouTube put it up there for me because, like, I took some advice from you actually. If I want to check out any Beardy, I'd make sure I'm signed out of my YouTube.
Yes.
Otherwise, it will start coming up. I did learn that. So why it popped up, I don't know, but curiosity got the better of me, and I thought, I'm going to call him out on this bollocks. And that's it. Excuse my French.
That's okay. Most Americans don't know what bollocks means anyway, so it's
fine. Right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just a matter of there's not a huge number of channels that are discussing things related to Bruce Lee, so I think the algorithm after a while just kind of starts spitting up the same stuff. It's not a huge pool of us, unfortunately. You know, people like John Little or Steve Kerridge don't have their own channels, so it is up to people like you and I to kind of, and Golden Bell and a few other people to kind of put out some decent Bruce Lee information. So at some point, it just becomes, I think, a bit incestuous. By the way, for those who don't know, or for my followers who don't follow you, the first thing you should do is finish watching this video and then go follow Stripey Rambles and subscribe to him. You just hit 30K subscribers, which is amazing.
I did.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's been a long road, but the last year I have knuckled down and focused on Bruce Lee. I've got a lot of records there. I used to do vinyls, all different film reviews, just rambles. That's why my name is. My name's Stripey and I ramble. But the last year I really knuckled down on Bruce. I've always been a fan, and my first video of Bruce was probably about 11 years old. It was a Way of the Dragon TV teaser. You know, so I've sporadically done it, but I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to find my niche, and I'm always into Bruce, and I narrowed it down, and I thought, well, I'm just going to focus on that, and it's grown. It's you know, the YouTube plays around with me a little bit. 1 minute it's like a lot coming in, and then it'll die off a little bit, but it is what it is. You know, when I stop posting shorts, I mean, the subscribers come flying in when you post shorts. But, you know, you just can't keep rehashing the same thing. You know, you're going to end up doing the thing we don't want to do. So I'm always trying to come up with new ideas how to approach a Bruce Lee subject, whether it's something to do with his films, some of the cast members, the soundtrack, different versions of the soundtrack. I don't know, but it seems to be appreciated. And yeah, I've just crossed the 30K. So I'm chuffed. I'm chuffed about it.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Also, on one of your recent videos, because you hit this 30K benchmark, you had promised your fans you would do one thing, which was to perform the nunchuck scene from Enter the Dragon, as you have been a Bruce Lee fan for a very, very long time and had taught it to yourself by as you say, watching the film again and again,
Video,
pausing,
that
going
was as
back
well.
and forth.
VHS, rewinding it, yeah.
Yeah, those were the struggle was real in those days to go back and watch, and some VCRs had slow motion, some didn't. Yeah, so you did it, and I have to say, I was quite impressed. You had the whole thing, the whole routine from beginning to end. You were looking at the camera. You were very focused. Very impressed. For people who haven't seen it, they should go on your channel just to see it. It is incredible. Hey everyone, it's the Kung Fu Genius. Fans and practitioners all know that the wooden dummy is the most coveted tool in Wing Chun, and now you can learn all about it in my cleverly titled book, The Wooden Dummy. I wrote this guide with you, the practitioner, in mind. Rather than mystifying any of the concepts or hiding so-called secrets, I've laid it all out in meticulous detail. The book is contextualized for practitioners of any lineage of the art, not just those who come from WT. Over 300 pages in length, The Wooden Dummy breaks down every aspect from the form, both technical, historical, theoretical details, and it makes it the perfect companion for anyone who's learning the wooden dummy techniques. I've even sweetened a deal for you. If you want to get a copy of this book signed by me, just use the coupon code SIGNATURE when you purchase the unsigned copy, and you will get the signed copy at no additional cost. So go to the link below or go to citywingchun.com/shop. Look up the Wooden Dummy book. Don't miss your chance. This is definitely one of the best books I've ever written on the wooden dummy, and I hope you'll find it's the best book ever written on the wooden dummy. Get yours today. Check it out.
Thank you. I'm truly humbled. The thing is, sometimes when I'm rambling, right, I'll say, about because I've done videos on Bruce Lee doing the nunchaku. We can talk about it if you want, and I say, yeah, I've learned that routine. And then a couple of the people go, really? Show us. And I think, me and my big mouth. So I've got to try to not do that, because it's happened to me twice now. Right. But yeah, it worked. It was my third attempt. The first one, they flew out of my hand, but I don't pick them up like I used to. I'm a 58-year-old man. I have a little go, but I don't do it like I used to. I couldn't. That was always in my hand when I was young. Right. But yeah, that's how that came about. Yes. And because I do get haters, like most people do on YouTube, I thought I'll just make it foolproof. So, with video editing software, you can speed things up. I explain that in the video, slow them down. I thought I'll make it foolproof. I've got a little water feature in the garden, do it up there. I did add some sound effects though.
I liked how you have great little one-liners in your videos. You talked about because He Who Shall Remain Nameless, not to go back to him, but on the thumbnail of him claiming the Nokia video, he had some what was like some guy was actually using the nunchucks to hit the
it was a Guinness Book of Records. That's what someone doing it on Guinness Book of Records, and basically he just took a screenshot of that and stuck Bruce Lee's head from Way of the Dragon, I think, on it, and put that out as the thumbnail.
And I like then how you put your photo on Bruce Lee.
That
was also really great.
I was just showing how easy it was, but I try and do it in a comedic way, to make myself look a little bit ridiculous, because it's all fun stuff, really.
Absolutely. You talked about haters. Do you? I occasionally get this because YouTube is not how I earn a living, but obviously, over time, I want to build the channel a little bit more. And slowly we're slowly reworking some stuff to kind of make it, have a little more mass appeal. And one of the things is the thumbnails, making sure you have a thumbnail that, seems controversial or, wants people to come and watch it. But what I've noticed is as I've started to do more and more of that, I seem to get a lot of comments from people who don't actually watch the video and they're reacting to the thumbnail. Is that something you get as well?
Honestly, there was this only happened to me last week, right? There was an article on City on Fire, and it was called "Enter the Dragon, the most overrated kung fu movie of all time."
How dare
with a question mark, right? And I read the article and I thought, hang on a minute, I don't agree. It was lovely. It was really well written. It was a really well written piece. But I thought, well, I'm going to read that out on the channel and debunk or disagree with points that I thought. So I did that. Well, mate, did I get some hate? Because people that don't watch a video, they just saw the title, Enter the Dragon, the most overrated film of all time, and they come at me. I mean, I'm pretty thick-skinned out. It don't really bother me, but I think, go and do something else. I had it with the Yunhua, the backflip.
Yes.
I've done a video saying, this is not Bruce Lee.
Right.
You know it's Yunhua. I know it's Yunhua.
Yes.
Some people would not have it.
Right.
They would not have it. And after a while, I haven't got the inclination to keep trying to explain myself. I just haven't, so it comes with the territory, I guess. But I've had it a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting about Bruce Lee because he is so iconic and so known for being such a great martial artist that when you mention the couple little pieces of acrobatics in Enter the Dragon was done by someone with acrobatic training, and Bruce Lee didn't have that training. So you tell them that and they kind of lose their minds. It's really bizarre, really bizarre.
Bruce hurt his back prior to that. Bruce, whether he could have done flips or not is not the point.
Right.
The Bob Wall bit, Yunhua done that backflip. It's a fact.
Yes.
And that's it. But some people, they just see the thumbnail, like with the Enter the Dragon is the most over. It's not even a kung fu film.
Yes.
It's a martial arts movie, action movie, but I give him that much attention, Alex. So I try not to get too involved.
Right. Yes. Also, another more recent video you talked about is Steve Kerridge's upcoming book, and talking about how great Steve Kerridge's work is. I've had him on the podcast a couple times.
I've watched him.
I've been a little bit out of the kind of what he's been working on. Can you just let our viewers know what is the new book actually about?
Well, he done the Mandarin Superstar that covers kind of the Big Boss era. The Intercepting Fist was the Fist of Fury era. Well, this is the Way of the Dragon. I was blown away, to be honest with you, because I've watched Steve on your podcast whenever he's been on. He doesn't do that many, actually.
Yeah, it's true.
But he actually reached out and got in contact with me. And he's in Thailand at the moment. But when he comes back, he's invited me to go round and I'm going to interview him, like, face to face.
Awesome.
I can't even believe it. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking, here's little old me. You know what I mean? And now he's WhatsApping me and all that. I'm chuffed to bits because I still get like that. You know what I mean? I am one of them.
Sure.
But yeah, so, and he sent me an article, a chapter from the book, and he said it's okay for me to read out. And he's really, really generous with his knowledge. And mate, I gel with him. I think he's a really nice geezer. I can't wait to actually meet him. He seems so spot on.
Yes.
And he knows his stuff. Let's be honest, him and that Darren Chua,
yes,
research they do is second to none. I can't wait, for the book to come. It's going to be good. I'm looking forward to interview him as well.
Yes.
I mean, I don't exactly know what I'm going to ask him. I'm going to be just like that, but I'll figure it out, I'm sure.
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't seen Steve Kerridge's previous work, like you mentioned, those two books, they go into the film and the behind the scenes and the stories, and then there'll be interviews with like the lighting guy who will tell some story, and the amount of depth that's in those books is really something I think it's really unmatched anywhere else.
Agreed.
Especially for that Hong Kong era. We have a lot of we have good stuff about what he had done in the States through John Little and through some other people, but that Hong Kong era is really, I think, there's nothing better than Steve Kerridge's books for that.
He's definitely up there as far as I'm concerned. Really well respected, and like you said, they're well researched. You find out little nuggets of stuff, and you think that is amazing. Where did they find that?
Yes,
and they're really well put together. I mean, they are classy to look at as well. Some rare pictures. I think I've seen every photo of Bruce Lee, and all of a sudden, Steve will pop up, and I'll go, "Well, I know I ain't seen that before." It's amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, so I'm really hyped about that. Like I said, he's in Thailand at the minute. He messaged me the other day actually saying, "Been watching your videos, mate. Well done." I'm chuffed to bits, I am, So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the interview and looking forward to meeting him and sitting down and picking his brains.
I've only been able to interview him through Zoom. I haven't had a chance to meet him face to face, so you're really quite lucky as far as that goes.
Yeah. Well, he's only up the way from me. He's only, half an hour drive. He's not far from me.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
That's pretty awesome.
That's really awesome, yeah.
All right, so I want to switch gears here and talk about everyone's favorite Bruce Lee movie, Game of Death.
Yeah, right.
And for people who were new to Bruce Lee and some, like the same kind of people who might think that Nokia ad was a real was real Bruce Lee footage. Game of Death was an unfinished work. It was finished posthumously by Golden Harvest Studios in 1978. I have my opinions on it. Let's say someone comes to you and says, "Hey, Stripey, I heard that Game of Death is Bruce Lee's final movie, and I want to watch it. I heard it was made in 1978. What can you tell me about it?" Now, how would you describe the 78 Game of Death to someone who had never seen it before or maybe doesn't know that much about Bruce Lee?
For me now, it's a guilty pleasure. I sort of hate it. I hate it because it's so exploitative. But the score, the theme by John Barry, the whole score is amazing. Some of the acting's pretty good in it, and the Samo martial arts is great. But is it a genuine Lee article? No. I think when John Little, or I think it might have been Bay Logan that found it, and then the Warrior's Journey that came out. And then you've had the Redux, you've had the Art Port, volumes 1 and 2. You've had various ones come on. And obviously the Game of Death Integral, which a subscriber sent that to me. I didn't even know it was a thing. And it's a really long version with literally every bit in it, bits of Way of the Dragon. It's actually clever, really, but it is just on top of Klaus's film, basically. For me, the final Game of Death documentary by Arrow is the thing to watch. If you're a Bruce Lee fan and want to know the ins and outs and everything about it, you get to see all the bloopers, all the outtakes, and he goes through the day-to-day, how it, for me, that is the holy grail of Game of Death. I get people say, why don't they use, we've got AI and CGI now, why don't they do that? And I'm like, for me, it wouldn't be organic. We'd be able to spot the Bruce Lee bits leave it as a documentary. To me, it's a perfect documentary. It's really, really well. It's long, 4 hours and something. It's long, but it's perfect.
And so that's a documentary. Is that part of a box set or is that a standalone?
Yeah. You can get it with the Arrow Way of the Dragon as the bonus disc, which is well worth it. But part of the Arrow box set that came out last year, Bruce Lee at Golden Harvest, which is superb, by the way. But it was a disc on there. And every Bruce Lee fan should really sit down and see that, in my humble opinion. You get to see stuff, even the little nips in the territories, the new territories, that footage that we only ever see years ago in Bruce Lee the Legend documentary. We see little bits of it. You get to see all that they've filmed or all that they've found so far, as well as the log scene. I know it's not even really Bruce, but it adds another piece to that puzzle. So for me, that is the way to go. If you want to watch, it's a bit of a Frankenstein, the 78 Robert Klaus.
Yes.
We can discuss Robert Klaus if you like. I'm not a massive Klaus fan. I appreciate Enter the Dragon, but I think without Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon it wouldn't be what it.
Sure.
There's a few other elements as well, like the Lalo Schifrin score and other bits. I'm a big fan of John Saxon and Jim Kelly as well. Right. But, without Bruce Lee, Enter the Dragon wouldn't be what it is, really.
Yeah.
So, but I sort of went off then from Game of Death. Sorry about that. But, for me, that would be the one I would recommend. Maybe John Little's Warrior's Journey, because that's a really, really nice documentary. But for seeing the footage is cleaned up and it's just the perfect documentary on that subject. And I think we know he didn't complete it. Let it lie. Right. People are going to splice it up and make other versions. Fair enough. You do what you got to do. But to me, that's good enough. So we got the 4 movies and that.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I saw Game of Death, the 78 version, as a child, having watched Enter the Dragon and I think The Big Boss and Fist of Fury. I don't know if I had seen Way of the Dragon yet. And I remember watching it and going, wait a minute, I've seen this piece of footage before. And wait a minute, that guy's not Bruce Lee at all. They had basically 4 people playing Bruce Lee in that film. You have obviously Bruce Lee himself through the original footage and repurposed footage. You had Kim Tai-chung, the Korean actor who did the lion's share of the fighting. Then there was another actor who was for the close-up shots because Kim Tai-chung couldn't speak English. So you had the guy who looked like Bruce and could speak English for the close-up stuff. And then you had Yun Biu doing the acrobatic stuff.
All the flips,
and
yeah.
and it's so kind of schizophrenic when you see this thing put together. It's interesting because I'm not a fan of like Bruceploitation films. I have friends who try to sell me on like, no, like you really got to watch like the Bruce Li movies and stuff. And for me, that's like it's like watching an Elvis imitator in Vegas and not appreciating it as a parody, but saying no, like but that's basically Elvis. And it's like, no, it's not. But I feel that the Game of Death 78 is the biggest Bruceploitation film ever made.
Oh,
I think it's by
it's
far
shocking
bigger than any of the Bruce Ellie's, Bruce Li's. It's
I've said it on the channel myself, because these people knew Bruce as well. So talk about exploiting him. And the fact that they showed his body in his coffin, all right, it's historical and all of that, fine. But to put it in a movie to make money, shameless.
Yeah.
But we've all seen it. We've seen it countless times. It's a bit of a Frankenstein, the 78. Like I said, the John Barry score is lovely. As soon as I hear that, I think of Bruce Lee.
Yes.
I just think of Bruce Lee.
Right.
And that's all over here. We didn't even get the Dan and the Santo fight. I mean, we literally just got Kareem and Jihan Jay. We didn't, because nunchucks, as you know, back in the old days, Mikey will know, they was banned over here. You couldn't watch them until the early 2000s. So, and yet we all still went out and rented Game of Death and then rented Game of Death because we got a little bit more of Bruce. I mean, we spoke about this before when we see him at Sharon Tate's funeral. I mean, it's just literally a photograph pretty much. And we're all like, whoa.
Yes. Yeah, whenever there's the smallest piece of footage of Bruce Lee that comes out, a few years ago, there was Bruce on the bike with the suspenders on the ABC set, and then when the Sharon Tate funeral footage came out, because he was obviously friends with Sharon Tate, and he just basically walks by the screen very, very briefly. And I was like, oh my God.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's understandable why they would have, wanted to do something with that footage. It's just interesting that was Raymond Chow's choice in 78, was to complete it in that kind of way. Also, to go back to your point about the funeral footage, because they use, there's no spoilers. It's Game of Death. Everyone's seen it. We're not spoiling the film, but the character dies midway through, kind of mirroring some of the conspiracy theories about Bruce Lee's death. And then they actually splice in actual footage from Bruce Lee's funeral.
Yeah.
And even show the open casket and have that scene go by. Interesting thing about that is Raymond Chow he had the weird foresight when Bruce Lee died to shoot all of that stuff with an actual film crew. He shot the entire funeral. That was Raymond Chow. They went into Bruce Lee's home. We've seen from that documentary where they're taking all the stuff out of Bruce Lee's house.
Yeah, the man, the legend.
Yeah. And he decided, like, I'm going to film all this stuff. And it's crazy because in hindsight, like, I'm a little less like, I thought it was weird they put in the movie. I mean, for me, I'm okay with seeing it. I understand why people would have an issue with it. As a Chinese nerd, I'm looking at like, who is there? There were a bunch of Wing Chun people at his funeral. There are a bunch of celebrities there. I looked at like what is actually written on the walls, who gave the difference. So like, I'm a nerd about that stuff. But what a shrewd move from Raymond Chow to go like, we're going to bring a film crew to film this funeral and film the moving vans taking stuff out of Bruce Lee's house and everything like that, and then put it in a documentary. It's wild.
But the thing is, Bruce was a cash cow for Raymond Chow, let's be honest. He was.
Which is exactly why Raymond wanted to kill him, right? I love that conspiracy theory. It's like, do you know what happened to Golden Harvest after he died? Like, he struggled for years after Bruce Lee died. It's crazy.
Yeah. But but Game of Death, guilty pleasure.
Yes.
I sort of like it. And then when I watch it, I think, oh, that's left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yes. You mentioned in that recent video about this Game of Death integral that you were just talking about. And they had, it's the 78 version, but they had changed some of the scenes. They had added some of the scenes. You said they took out the famous cardboard wiggly neck scene.
They did, yeah. They just showed a picture from Fist of Fury. That's all they done. So it was actually done by Brandon Bentley, who done a lot of the audio commentaries on the Big Boss and all that lot on that Arrow box set. And he'd done it years ago, apparently, because I found it on one of these fandoms. And yeah, it was an interesting thing to do. And they got rid of the Chris Kent, the the really awful ones that are in Game of Death that are obviously not Bruce. Sorry, Chris Kent, if you ever watch this. But they've replaced them with battle cries from Bruce Lee's previous films, which is a little bit more palatable, even though I believe they overdo it a little bit. If you watch the Bruce and Sammo fight at the beginning of Enter the Dragon, there's a bit, but it's not over the top. I mean, literally every move has got to be wow, wow. I'm like, come on. But am I getting picky here? I think maybe.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that it's all dubbed later or added in or inserted, it has that ADR feeling where it doesn't quite match the video. No. Like it just sounds like it was added later, and it doesn't it doesn't feel organic or natural.
But it's a little gem, and one of my subscribers made it for me, sent it me through the post. I enjoyed watching it because it was a little bit different. Right. It was a different ending. He gets arrested at the end and all blah blah blah. And they just basically spliced up all the other bits, different cuts of the film, and put them all together and make it. I think it's 127 minutes long. Wow. So it's quite a long version as well.
And that footage of him getting arrested at the end, where he's leaving the Red Pepper restaurant, that
right.
They had originally filmed. That just wasn't in the original one. Is that correct, or was that shot later? Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And you also said that they added the that Casanova Wong Kim Tai Chung fight scene, which, as someone who kind of hates Bruceploitation, if there's one fight scene where I'm like, it's pretty damn good, it's at Kim Tai Chung versus Casanova Wong in like a greenhouse or something.
Yes, it is a greenhouse, yeah.
Yeah, and that was originally Tower of Death, that were Game of Death 2 or something like that.
Game of Death 2, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was actually filmed by Sammo Hung, done the fight choreography. It was done for Game of Death, apparently, but they didn't use it. But in the integral, they've got the bit from Way of the Dragon where Bruce Lee's doing his morning exercise and flexing his lungs, but then you can hear some noises, and all of a sudden he's like sniffs. We know he's sniffing Nora Mal's food, but he looks up and he goes in, and then he hears noises and leaves the room, goes down, and that's where he has that greenhouse fight. It's quite cleverly done, but again, it takes you out of the film because you go, Way of the Dragon.
Yes.
Big Boss, Fist of Fury. You can't, it was an interesting thing to have. It's nice to have in the collection with all the other different versions of Game of Death, but it was interesting. I've never heard of it, and it's pretty hard to get your hands on as well. I mean, you can't find it. I was just very fortunate. Someone burnt me a copy on Blu-ray and sent it through the post. One of my subscribers, awesome. Which was very. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
So for people, you had mentioned a little bit before about the Arrow box set, and so for people, let's say, who still have traditional, hard media, DVDs, Blu-rays, if someone wants to buy the best version of Bruce's Golden Harvest era films, okay, so we're not let's leave Enter the Dragon out of it for a moment. What is the best version as far as the quality, maybe perhaps the extras, so the overall best version, if you want to buy that, which one is it?
It was Criterion until, well, maybe, but it is Bruce Lee at Golden Harvest by Arrow, which is a boutique label. The picture quality is unbelievable. I mean, when you watch Fist of Fury, it's done off the original negatives, and it looks like it could have been made recently. It looks that polished, It's the best box set, hands down, if I'm honest. Whether you buy the Blu-ray, I mean, the extras, I could be here all night. They're reeling them off. Different versions and different audio commentaries. And they're really, I mean, they found not only the log scene, they had the Mandarin cut of the Big Boss, which was an extra 10 minutes of footage.
Oh.
We're like that over the spit at Sharon Tate's funeral. We're talking about 10 minutes of Bruce Lee.
Really? In Big Boss, and
in the Big Boss, the cart
was
scene.
It like the brothel scene or something, or
yeah. The famous trailer where he throws a girl on the bed and he stood there with no top on.
Uh-huh.
Well, that scene, and also him and James Chen after the first fight, after the gambling den, and the thugs run after him. They go walking off, and it was supposed to be called the burning cart scene, but it wasn't a burning cart; it was just a cart. But that whole scene of him and Bruce walking down the road. And yourself, you seen something you haven't seen before. It's like, what is this? This is unbelievable. Wow. There's no saw in the head scene, though. unfortunately.
That is the white whale of Bruce Lee collectors, right there.
I think so. Whether we're actually ever going to see it, I'm not sure we will. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. But yeah, for me, if you want the best version, if of Golden Harvest box set is leagues above the others. You know, the restoration, the colours, everything. It just looks amazing.
So that's it. Now for Enter the Dragon, what's the best version of that? Is it the recent one that they released like last year?
Yeah,
I think
pretty much, yeah, because it's 4K.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting your 4K version of Enter the Dragon. Is it a perfect 4K? No, I think it could have been better, but it's as good as you're going to get. It does look vibrant, does look sharp, but I'm comparing it to Arrow and what Arrow done. I would have loved Warner Brothers to go on Arrow, because Enter the Dragon's in the Arrow box set, but it's the 40th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Warner Brothers was sort of not going to. They was doing It's My Precious, because you know they made over 400 million on a movie that cost 850 grand. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's been a good one for Warner Brothers, but I would have loved them to say, do you know what, Arrow? There's all the elements. See what you can make of it. You know, it would have been out of this world. It really would have been. But you know, it's still amazing to watch. It looks fresh, looks colourful, looks vibrant. But I honestly, being a bit of a nerd, think it could have been slightly better. That's all.
But there's no new footage. It's the same version we've all seen, right? There's no additional scenes or anything, or.
Nah, I mean, obviously you've got the special edition with the monk scene, you know, at the beginning where he's talking to the abbot, but they've also included the theatrical cut. And even though it's got less Bruce, the theatrical cut is the one that I grew up and fell in love with,
Me
you know.
too.
So, yeah. So after the Braithwaite nod, it goes into dun, 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 you know, and the titles. You know, having the abbot just made the intro a little bit too long, and then we've got the titles that are quite long, still fantastic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but you got both versions on the disc, but no new extras, nothing new, same old stuff that we had from 10 years ago.
Sure.
But
and it's hard to believe that they don't have extra stuff. I had Bay Logan on the podcast back in February, and I asked him when he was working for Media Asia, you know, what else did he see while he was over there? And in addition to finding the additional stuff from Game of Death, which was not in the original 78, he said he saw a bunch of scenes for Enter the Dragon for which they were shooting a Cantonese version. And he said that it wasn't, they were actually shooting an alternate version in Cantonese for the Hong Kong audience. So it was almost like they had to do all of the scenes twice, but they seem to have abandoned it pretty early. But for some of those early scenes, like with Bruce in his room where he wants the owner of this thought, there's a version where he's speaking Cantonese, saying all of that same stuff. So there has to be more. And
there is.
And of course, it's strange that these guys sit on this, especially nowadays, because it's so easy to release this kind of media, and this stuff always makes a big splash whenever it comes out. It's unfortunate that any of this stuff is still hidden, you know?
And it is hidden as well. But you're dead right, because I've been working on, I'm going to be doing a video on the Game of Death 2. And there is a bit in there where he's talking to the abbot. It's obviously Billy Lowe in Game of Death 2. And it's obviously the scene from Enter the Dragon, but it's a different take. Mm-hmm. He's saying the same words, Bruce Lee, in that, but it's a different take. His arm movements, it's different. So somewhere these things are laying dormant, or like you said, someone sat on them doing My Precious again, you know.
Yes.
I've got it, you can't see it. And why would you do that?
Yes.
You know, if I found something that everyone would enjoy, I can still enjoy it as well.
Yeah, even when Bay found the footage, he only found it because he pressed one of the employees while he was working at Media Asia, like, hey, do you guys have any extra Bruce Lee stuff? And the guy was like, look at that bin over there. Go look. And he's looking through there and he found the reel, and it was just sitting there like full of dust. And it's interesting because unfortunately in Hong Kong, they're not nostalgic about their own pop culture the way, you know, we non-Hong Kong Chinese are. I remember I wanted to get the soundtrack for the first Yip Man movie, the first Donnie Yen Yip Man movie, because it's a very nice instrumental soundtrack. And that movie came out, I think, in 2008. And I was in Hong Kong 2010. And I went, there was still music and DVD stores back then. And I asked them for it. And the guy there said, no, that movie's too old. We wouldn't carry that. It was a year and a half old at that point. They're like, no, it's like they have no nostalgia for any of their old stuff. It's like, oh no,
That's
that stuff is
wild,
old. Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
crazy.
It
Absolutely.
really is. I can't get my head around that. You know, whether it be Bruce Lee, Beatles, the old original stuff is priceless.
Yes, absolutely.
But different cultures, I guess. I don't understand it.
So, of all the films, I know it's always difficult to say, especially for hardcore fans. What's your favorite Bruce Lee movie?
I've always said my whole life, Enter the Dragon. But if I'm honest, it is a toss-up between The Way of the Dragon and Fist of Fury. I think Fist of Fury is a really well-made, on a technical level as well, movie. But Way of the Dragon just charms me and it puts me in a good mood. And there's some bloody amazing fights, well, in both films. So it's probably, on any different day, I've even got a new appreciation for Big Boss, to be honest with you. But I think it's between them three. It'd be really hard to press me and say one, because tomorrow I might say Way of the Dragon. By Monday, it could be Fist of Fury, and then I'd be back to Into the Dragon again.
Right.
So I'd say it's one of them three, probably the two Hong Kong movies. But
yeah. Interesting. I think I would answer it exactly the same. I saw Enter the Dragon first. I think that was my favorite for the longest time because of the general production and also because the primacy effect. It was the first one I saw. It was the one that made me fall in love with Bruce Lee. But as I got older, it was like Fist of Fury and Way of the Dragon. I think I like Way of the Dragon a little bit better only because it's Bruce's first movie where he could write and direct. In the Cantonese version, there's a lot of humor in it. And there's a lot of stuff like the whole scene. It doesn't translate to English very well, but like that scene where he's at the airport and he wants to eat and he can't speak Italian or English. And he's looking at the menu and what he says in Cantonese, he just looks at it and he's like, Kaitan. Like he's just asking, like, can I just have eggs? And like the lady doesn't know what he's saying. And he plays that country bumpkin so well. And then he orders a bunch of stuff. Why? Because in Hong Kong, everything would be these small little dim sums. They wouldn't be these big things. And he ends up getting all these soups because he never ordered anything that wasn't off of a Chinese menu. And like, if you understand that, it makes perfect sense. And then he's there and he's forced to eat like these soups and then he gets sick. It's just perfect. It's that movie's really one of my favorites.
It is a classic.
Hey everyone, just want to let you know Wing Chun Illustrated is now offering a paperback edition through Amazon, reaching a larger global market. And no, they're not ditching the glossy magazine edition through MagCloud. You can now simply choose the version of this magazine you prefer and the one with the cheapest shipping wherever you live. Order your copy of Wing Chun Illustrated today across 12 Amazon marketplaces with free shipping for Prime members. Go and check that out.
All right, so everyone has a Bruce Lee origin story, how they first came to Bruce Lee. What is yours?
Well, I was a bit too young to go see it at the cinema when it was out in the early 70s. But luckily, I've got a lot of brothers and my older brothers were mad for him. My older brother and my father as well. So they'd come home, Rice Krispie boxes, kicking the shit out of me, that sort of stuff. And like my older brother, when he sort of he went off it a little bit, give me the Kung Fu monthlies. And it weren't until video came out that someone said to me, come around and watch this, and he just showed me the cavern scene from Enter the Dragon. And I was hooked by then. I was done. And it's never really gone away. I think that night I signed up at a video shop and come away with Fist of Fury. And when I got indoors, I said to me, Dad, I've got Bruce Lee film. He said, what one? Fist of Fury. He said, I haven't seen that. So I sat down with me dad, and it's never gone away since, really, considering it's only 4 and Game of Death films. It's pretty bloody incredible, the longevity. But and started doing martial arts, one thing and another. Yeah, and sometimes I watch other things for a little while, but I always come back to Bruce Lee. Always come back to Bruce Lee. Don't know why. I don't think there's ever been an actor, artist, maybe even human like him, talk about wow, when he's on the screen, you can't take his eyes off him. If two other people are talking, you're watching Bruce Lee stood at the back, not saying nothing. It's a really weird thing, but you just can't take your eyes off him.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting you say that. There's like Enter the Dragon. Whenever that movie suffers, it's because Bruce Lee is not on the screen. And there's that scene where John Saxon and Bolo are going to have their fight scene. And I think it's from John Saxon. You see John Saxon facing the camera. And I'm always looking at Bruce over his shoulder, who's kind of
with
like
his
arms folded, looking like that. I'm never looking at John Saxon. Like, and Bruce is out of focus in the background. I'm like still looking right at him.
Course. I'm looking forward to actually. There's this new documentary coming out. I'm not sure who's doing it. Is it called Bamboo and Dragons? And it's John Saxon had a video camera apparently, like Anna Capri.
Oh, kidding.
Yeah. There's little clips of it on YouTube if you look around for it.
Wow.
And just slightly different takes. Bob Wall grabbing Bruce's foot and Bruce going, and I'm like, I've not seen that before. Wow. I've definitely not seen that before. So I don't know when it's going to be produced. I see it last year. Yeah, it was last year. So yeah, I don't know what. I don't even know what's involved. It's John Saxon apparently had a camera on set that no one knew about either. I mean, why don't they just bring these things out of their garage instead of just sitting on them? I mean, John's gone now, obviously.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But yeah, I think it's going to be called Bamboo and Dragons.
Yeah, interesting thing about John Saxon, who was already an actor in his own right before that film and still continued to act. He's the first Friday the 13th. But he's most known for Enter the Dragon. He's now buried in Lakeview Cemetery, close to Bruce Lee. Very, very, very interesting. Yeah.
I liked him. I actually liked John Saxon. I did. I actually liked him.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Yeah, I like Roper in Enter the Dragon. I know he wasn't the first choice, but I like him. But, that's what we've got coming, apparently. That's the next bit, because I always get asked, what's the latest bit of Bruce Lee footage?
It's getting thinner and thinner.
Unfortunately, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's still a few people around who can tell some stuff about Bruce Lee, but it's getting fewer and fewer and less and less. I may have mentioned this to you on our first now secret interview, which will become years from now, it'll be the lost Stripey Rambles interview, right? I talked about how I had dim sum in Hong Kong with a very established stuntman. He's retired now, Cheung Wing Hon, and he was in Enter the Dragon, and he had done films with Jackie Chan, and he had done like the golden era of action movies. But despite the fact that he had done a lot of films and lots of famous stunts, his screensaver on his iPhone was the photo of him with Bruce Lee on Enter the Dragon. So it was like, even for him, that was the number one thing that he had ever done. And he told me, because I asked him, I said, what was it like working? First of all, he didn't only do Enter the Dragon because of Steve Kerridge's book. Because like you said, there's all these little things in Steve Kerridge's book. I saw that Cheung Wing Hon was one of the karate guys in Fists of Fury, which I didn't even know because Mr. Cheung didn't even tell me. He was just talking about Enter the Dragon. And then I saw his name in there and like, man, Steve Kerridge, and those books are like amazing. And Mr. Cheung told me that of all the stunt people he had of all the actors he had ever worked with, he said there was never anyone who was better to the stuntmen than Bruce Lee. He said he said he took care of us. He said he wouldn't let Raymond Chow bully us. And when Raymond Chow wanted to give him better food and us less food, Bruce would sit with us and eat the same food we ate. And so, which is why then, and I think we talked about this last time, why it was so frustrating about all this like Quentin Tarantino nonsense, because of the sheer admiration that the stuntmen who worked for Bruce Lee had, and go on record saying, I mean, all of these guys, Lam Ching Ying, Yun Hua, Cheung Wing Hon, all of these guys, they were with Bruce after Big Boss. They were with Bruce all the time. They were his entourage. He came on the set. They didn't know who this guy was. He's replacing James Tien. And after that one film, they were in his corner. And
I was on board, yeah.
And they loved him, and they knew that, that he would take care of them and he would help to advance their careers. But at the same time, he had a genuine, love for these guys. So yeah, it's a little annoying. And I know you did a video about the problem with Quentin Tarantino's take on Bruce Lee, which is...
I don't know what his problem is. I mean, he obviously likes Bruce Lee or has been inspired by Bruce Lee. Watch Kill Bill. It isn't just the outfit that she wears. You know, you got the Green Hornet theme, the Owl Heart theme. There's loads of little nuggets that pay homage to Bruce. But he has famously said he prefers the Bruce Lee knockoff films, you know, the
Yeah,
Bruce,
which is crazy.
which is just a stupid thing to say. I think, come on, Squidin,
Yeah.
you should be better than that. But he won't. He's doubling down. That's the problem.
Yes.
He got called out on it. And I think like his portrayal of Bruce in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had serious financial consequences because I think it was banned in China. You know, Shannon came out really like, don't say that about my dad, make my dad look like a jerk. And I didn't have a problem with the fight. It was about the way he was a cocky, big-headed. We know Bruce was confident and we knew he was cocky, but people loved him. You wouldn't warm to a bloke or a character like that.
Right.
I understand to make Cliff Booth, Brad Pitt, and it's a great movie, by the way. The twist at the end was fantastic.
Yes.
So we know it's make-believe.
Flamethrowers.
But Bruce is a historical person, and I'm glad he got called out on his bullshit on it, to be honest with you. I really don't do it again.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, leave Bruce alone.
Yeah, I think it's a Hollywood thing, you know, like Hollywood people like to have takes that are a little bit different than what the mass is like. Oh, you think Bruce Lee's great? Actually, he was just a jerk. And you know, like, oh, and you know, Bruce Lee wasn't a great kung fu star. Lo Lee was the greatest of all the kung fu stars, which as outside of Bruce Lee, I'm also a Hong Kong film nerd. Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest, all that, like I can get into all of that. And while I think Lo Lee was great, he played a fantastic villain, especially in the late 70s. But to say that he was on par with Bruce Lee or even better than Bruce Lee as an action star, I think it's just to be provocative because it's not even there are other guys you could compare to Bruce Lee in a far more realistic way than Lo Lee, but he says that because he's Quentin and he's a great
Quentin
director.
Tarantino.
So he has his hot takes that, you know, well, you're not as well versed in film as he is, so you wouldn't understand. That's why you would think Bruce Lee was the best. Right?
I think Quentin's had too many yes people. The problem is when you get to that sort of level, you have too many yes people around you all the time, and that's what I honestly believe.
Sure,
you know.
Sure.
And that's it. He's just up his own backside, which is a shame because he seemed like when he done Reservoir Dogs and then went on to Pulp Fiction, he seemed like that geek, that movie geek you'd want to talk to.
Right.
But now you kind of just think,
yeah, he's in that phase of his career right now.
yeah.
You had mentioned about this upcoming documentary with the John Saxon footage. What's your favorite of all the Bruce Lee documentaries that have come out since?
Well, at the moment, it's The Final Game of Death.
Okay.
Because it's really long. It's a bit like a Kerridge book that sort of unturned every stone. And you're seeing stuff that you hadn't seen before. My all-time favourite used to be Bruce Lee, the Legend. I just love the way it opened. Boom, 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 with the music and all that. And I thought it was pretty good. I like the Death by Misadventure documentary. There's been a few. Warrior's Journey is fantastic. I think the ultimate one hasn't been made yet, or not that I've seen. Whether it'll ever get made or whether I'll have to do it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but there is some good ones. I think if you cut them all up and maybe put them together, I'll tell you what was nice. There was a new one put out by the BBC last year, and Steve was involved, I do believe. And it was called A Life in 10 Pictures. That was beautiful. Just 10 photographs and people that was there with Bruce at the time. They spoke about it. It had a pulse. I felt it. It was really, really well done. Yeah. That's all I've got to say about that, I guess.
I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that. Hopefully this.
It's lovely. It's really, really well done.
You have some BBC account over here?
Yeah, I actually do, because I was trying to find places to European Championship.
All right,
BBC iPlayer. I think it'll be on there. It's really, really worth checking out. It was about an hour long. It's just people candidly talking about Linda as well, and it was really, really nice. A Life in 10 Pictures. I'm not a big fan of the BBC, but I did enjoy that.
Sure. Yeah, I think I actually like what you said there about the ultimate documentary hasn't been made yet. Maybe it's going to have to be made by fans, because the
fans,
what the Lee estate has pumped out, their last two documentaries I found pretty abysmal. The Be Water documentary, I'm a Bruce Lee nerd. I mean, Bruce Lee's kind of a very important person in my life, and I struggled to even want to finish watching that. The footage they had on there was grainy. There's better versions of the footage available on YouTube than what they used. They try to rewrite Bruce Lee in kind of through this very modern lens, and you don't need to do that. The man was extraordinary for his time and for this time. You don't need to reimagine him through some kind of new lens. And
I
also
agree.
I think it was I Am Bruce Lee, which is the one the Lee Estate did before that, where it was like, here's a hip hop dancer telling you how Bruce Lee inspired him to do hip hop dancing. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, I want
Yeah.
to hear
No,
about
I'm
Bruce
on
Lee.
board.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that one. I mean, I have said on the channel I like that, but I'll tell you why. I mean, I went to the cinema to see I Am Bruce Lee when it first came out. Now, I hadn't seen Bruce Lee at the cinema forever,
Hmm.
right? And when I was talking about the Arrow stuff and all them Blu-rays earlier, for me, the way to watch Bruce Lee is on a big screen. Me and the wife went to see Enter the Dragon last year, the 50th anniversary. The movie went like that for a film I've probably seen 400 times since I was a young man, and I'm sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I used to literally put it on every day. The film went that quick. So I went to see I Am Bruce Lee, and just to see Bruce on the big screen got me all excited again. But when you watch it now, like you said, I don't really care if it made you a better dancer. I mean, he's got John Jones on there,
Yeah.
but he's talking about himself. He's not
Yes.
talking about Bruce Lee. So
Yeah.
I do like the little bits like Danny DeSanto, Gene, LaBelle. Won't go into that too much, bullshitter. But yeah, so there were some bits in it I do like. But for me, just to see Bruce on the big screen was enough to turn me on. I was
Sure.
like, there we go.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's probably why I liked it at the time. Not so much now. Like I said, I don't think the best one's been made yet.
The best one I've seen is one that you cannot see publicly. And it's in Hong Kong. They've had for quite a while now. They've had a huge Bruce Lee exhibit at the Hong Kong Heritage Museum in Sha Tin, and they have lots of Bruce Lee memorabilia, letters, his books, his clothes. You could go there. I mean, they have Bruce's clothes with his BL embroidered in there, like these like sweaters that he had on mannequins, the same exact size behind a glass case, and you can actually like stand in front of Bruce Lee, a mannequin in Bruce Lee's proportions, wearing his clothes like face to face, and see it. It's amazing. And they had like letters that he had written, certificates, and everything for geeks. And for the longest time, they had a documentary there, which was produced in Hong Kong. And they got the usual suspects like Linda Lee and Dan Inosanto and a lot of the American guys and the other students of Bruce Lee in the States. But they had gotten a bunch of Bruce's Hong Kong childhood friends, people he grew up with, people he made movies with, background people, people that you otherwise, like extras from Enter the Dragon and other films who were there. And they had all these great Bruce Lee stories. And it was told with such heart, and they would run the documentary like 3 or 4 times a day at the museum. So you could go to the museum. You would look at the time when the documentary would show. You would go to the other part of the museum in a proper movie theater, and you would sit and get to watch this on a big screen. You weren't allowed to bring any cameras in there because they didn't want anyone showing this one. And it was so good. I had gone to that exhibit 4 times. I watched it every single time I went.
Really?
And it's weird to admit this, I literally cried every time I watched it because when they would tell the story of his death, they had like Nora Mao telling like how she found out. And it was like, and then all the people like saying what they were doing when they found out, how they found out. And like, you felt it. And as the documentary progresses and you get towards that, because it's told in a linear fashion, his death is coming and you feel it. Yeah. And like, that is really good filmmaking when you are already starting to feel something ominous is about to happen. And when they tell it, and then the funeral, and then you even see people into there like crying when they're telling the story. It was so well done. And then I went to Hong Kong last year with my tour. I'm going to do the tour again next month, the Ultimate Hong Kong Kung Fu Tour. The best way to see Hong Kong is with me. I'm not even trying to exaggerate. It just is the way it is. When I went there last year, we went to the exhibit and they no longer have the documentary.
Where's the documentary?
They still have the exhibit, but now for that movie theater, they're showing something else because they showed that thing for like 8 years. And then I'm like, you don't have the documentary anymore. They're like, oh, no, we stopped showing that a couple of years ago. I go, can you buy it? Like, they looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean, can you buy it? Like, do you have a DVD of it? They're like, what? And I'm like, so where is it? And they're like, and the person who worked there is like, it was just like, yeah, we don't have it anymore. They were looking at me like I was batshit crazy for even wanting to have it. And I tell you, like, your fans and my fans and everyone, they need to start writing letters to the Hong Kong Heritage Museum in Sha Tin and say this thing, because it would be a great way for them to earn money to release that thing, because I have not seen a better documentary thus far about Bruce Lee. They had all the footage from his movies. They had actors he was in the films with while he was a child, talking about making movies with him as a teenager. And there was one actor who had he was an adult. He had like a busted finger that was kind of long, and he was scolding Bruce. And they were talking about how Bruce would always laugh because this guy's finger was so long, and they had to do so many takes because they were always laughing at this old. Like, you heard stories that you were like, I didn't know any of this. And the documentary is poof.
All right, so we need to get some of our subscribers writing to them then, because it sounds great. And obviously, if it's moved you, and you've probably seen all the documentaries like I have, so that's the best one you've seen?
I would say it's the best one because of the people who are telling stories were people who really knew him. And you heard from people who you never heard before. It's not just the usual suspects. It was his classmates. It was all sorts of people. Even Yip Chun, Yip Man's son, talked about this little squabble that Bruce had with, Yip Man about the creation of Jeet Kune Do, and then that they kind of resolved things, and they were walking on Nathan Road together, arm in arm, and telling all these stories. And these are things that you just never really heard before. And I get goosebumps thinking about it, and it's gone. You literally, it's nowhere. Maybe it's just sitting.
And we're going to have to do this. We're going to have to get some people writing to them. Let's get this thing done.
Absolutely.
And like you said, it could make them a little bit of money as well.
Sure,
enough people bought it. Why wouldn't they?
Definitely. Now we're going to slowly wrap up here. So I just want to ask you kind of a lightning round, or well, not a lightning round, just a couple questions. You can tell me what you think. Speaking of missing Bruce Lee gems, if there was a piece of footage, right? Now we know that there's missing Bruce Lee footage, interviews, TVB interviews, all this stuff. Okay. If you could have one, all right, one that you know exists, all right, what would it be?
It's tough. I don't like the one bit. Maybe the Henry Wong footage, because that's quite a lot of it. That would be kind of nice if that came up.
You're talking about the behind the scenes from Enter the Dragon?
Yes.
That like disappeared into the ether?
That's just mental. That would be kind of one of them, I think. Obviously, the Hong Kong interviews would be awesome. The episode of, is it Blondie?
Yes.
The TV show that he done that's just was aired once on the telly and it's just shelved. I mean, CBS.
Hey,
show us.
I should, CBS, their headquarters is right here in Manhattan. I should march over there right now and just walk in there and demand that they release that episode.
Yes. It's Bruce Lee.
Crazy.
But possibly maybe the Henry Wong footage, because there was a lot of it, and let's be honest, it looked like it would have been awesome. You see Henry Wong, don't you? In the making of Enter the Dragon, and other bits, you see him walking around with his camera, and you're just thinking, well, he didn't want to give that to Fred Weintraub. Fred Weintraub was going, I don't want it. I'm like, what is that? But obviously at the time, they didn't know Bruce was going to pass away.
Right.
So, and like that Hong Kong sensibilities that you explained to me, move on to the next thing.
Yep.
No sense of this will be worth or cherished by people now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So that would probably be the one, if the Henry Wong footage, probably for Enter the Dragon. I mean, I've heard this outtakes from Why the Dragon floating around. I mean, I would love that, because obviously they can't do a brilliant fight scene like that with Chuck Norris in one take.
Sure.
Of course not. Where is it? Burnt? Thrown on a bonfire? Down a tip? I mean, or in a canister? Dusty under that leaf, a load of other stuff. You just don't know.
Last question.
Right.
It's difficult to be hopeful about lots of new stuff coming out about Bruce Lee. Some people seem somewhat hopeful about the new biopic directed by Ang Lee. starring his own son in the title role. I not excited about it at all. I mean, this is my opinion. Not everyone shares it. Like anytime Shannon Lee is involved in anything, I tend to not get very excited about it. But do you think now? I mean, if it's great, if they do a good job, Ang Lee's obviously a very capable director, but I don't have a good feeling about this. I have a feeling it's just going to be, the typical film made for quote unquote modern audiences. And do you think there's a chance that this is not going to be an absolute horror show for Bruce Lee fans?
I don't know. If I'm honest. I mean, I like dragging the Bruce Lee story. We know it's fictionally wrong.
Right.
But there's, again, the score. I actually quite liked him as Bruce Lee. And there were some bits about it I really do like. I've got to do videos on that. I've got a lot of faith in Ang Lee as a director. I don't know about his son's martial arts skills, but is it going to just be the glossy stuff? They're not going to talk about Bruce Lee's drug problems. I would rather something a little bit more gritty, a little bit more real, but I don't think that's going to be made now. As if they're going to put that out. They're not going to. If it's signed off by the Lee estate, and I've got all respect for who they are, but they want Bruce painted in a certain way. Sure. When the man was a little bit more complicated than that. I would like something a little bit more truthful.
Yes.
We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure it'll be a wonderful production. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I will go and see it. Of course I will. I will. But we will see. Yeah. I'll leave it with that.
Well, I think Ang Lee can definitely create a serviceable film that people will like because it's a well-made film. I can imagine that something like people will say it's a good movie. Maybe it'll even be an Oscar contender. But like the Bruce Lee fans will be like, ugh. And
the thing is, if it keeps Bruce Lee's name in consciousness and people's aware, that's not a bad thing. Because someone might see it and think, oh, I want to find out about this Bruce Lee guy and go back and start looking at his stuff. So anything to keep his name going, I guess, is a good thing.
Yes.
Like I said, I'll wait and see. I will definitely critique it after I've watched it. I'm hopeful. And I'm doubtful. So I don't know what to say, really.
Yes.
We'll see.
Well, Stripey, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we finally do it this time glitch-free. Your first interview. Congratulations. Yes. This was awesome.
Thank
we should
you.
definitely do this again. Maybe after the Ang Lee movie comes out, we can do a back and forth on our takes on it and see.
Anytime you want to chat, mate. You're
awesome.
Anytime.
All right. Thanks a lot.
I really enjoyed it.
Next time. By the way, people want to follow you. Stripey, is it at Stripey Rambles on YouTube?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, just Stripey Rambles, it comes up.
And do you have any other social media or just the YouTube?
No, it's literally just, I do have a Twitter, but I try not to go on there too often because I end up going down rabbit holes.
Yes,
so
good. Okay,
I try and stay off.
YouTube it is. Everyone follow Stripey on YouTube. His content is absolutely amazing. And,
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thanks so much for doing it. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Kung Fu Genius. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the Kung Fu Genius. Hit that bell for notifications. Let me know if you like this kind of content. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm sea gung. And I produce masters. You surpassed us. Your kung fu stiffer than corpse and caskets. City Wing Chun is the house I built. Violate the gate and your blood gets spilt. Alex, Richter, always the victor.
Excuse the ice cream van that's just come down the road.
Oh, that's okay. We're in New York, so we may hear sirens and people screaming and gunshots. So that's
fair enough. An ice cream van's fine.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Kung Fu Genius. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the Kung Fu Genius. Hit that bell for notifications. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of content. It's going to be one of those days. It's because that's fucking loud. Lots of, well, you'll see in a moment. Let's get to it. I love when I start doing that and I don't know what I'm going to say.
Exactly. Unlike Dre, who does know what he's going to say.
I can't say it no matter how many times we do it. Fantastic. Beautiful.